Hi, I'm Sharang Biswas. These are the kind of places I've done gamey things for. You may recognize some of them. So the kind of things I do, I make board games. If you buy it, I will get $1, so please do. I make interactive theatre, because it's fun. I make weird things in galleries where they ask me to make games about fake news, and I give them a game about bees. This is Feast. It is a game where you pretend to be alien parasites sucking each other's memories out while eating food. I also write for games, and I'm sorry, do you not like writing? Everyone should write. I also write a lot about games because it's fun. One thing I haven't actually done is made a LARP. So that's interesting when I was asked to be keynote speaker. Emily, should say yes. Now, I was doing some research for an article recently when I was going through a book, and I found this quote, what is immersive theatre? Immersive theatre is a phenomenological, multi-sensory experience of place where visual, oral, olfactory, and tactile elements become an integral and often heightened part of the audience experience. So I'm like, okay, and then I paused, and I'm like, you know what? This can describe a lot of different things, like LARP. Right? So this is New World Magiscola, and I'm like, everything that sentence just described, I did in here. This is actually me doing an improv interpretive dance about Indian mythology, because why not? And I'm like, so this is interesting. This definition very much applies to LARP. In fact, it applies to many different kinds of embodied play. I was at the Immersive Design Summit in January in San Francisco, and there were like 3 of us who knew what LARP was, and everyone was like, what? You do this in LARP? I'm like, yes. And people were very surprised, and then at the same time, I find a lot of LARP people do not know that, oh wait, there's this whole world of immersive and interactive theatre and things like that. So, I'm going to spend the first half of my talk chatting a little bit about some of the various kinds of embodied play and the way you see them delineated, and then we're going to go from there. So first, this is something many of you will know. I just like that image, so I had to put it there. It's my character from Just With Loving. I just got to wear a lot of leather. It was great. So LARP often, and again, these definitions aren't like exhaustive definitions that apply to every single thing. We'll get to that. So LARP often includes a lot of role play, like you embody an actual character. There are distinct narratives, so there are like beginnings, middles, and ends of plot lines. There is an important sense of place, whether or not that's shown or it's imagined, but the sense of place is important. And usually, and not always, because there are many different kinds of LARP, there's less scripting, there's some element of less play to find out where we're going next. Now, this isn't always the same in interactive theatre. So this is a piece that I made at some theatre in Brooklyn, I guess. And this involved a lot of heavy scripting, where there were only a certain number of endings or a certain number of paths the player could go down. In fact, there was not a lot of narrative agency at all. You had a couple of choices. We did a good job of giving you the illusion that you had infinite choice, but in fact, if the players did something, we backstage were like, okay, give them choice A, and we made it happen. And then the role play was light to medium. So in this game, for example, called Treason, the audience was like the back room of the CIA who does all the computer searching and hacking and stuff, while the secret agent was not on stage and you can only hear his voice and you can see what he sees through video projection. But so we told everyone, you are the back room of the CIA, but you are yourself. And people are more involved in the puzzle solving, narrative decision making, and not, what moral dilemmas am I having to work in the CIA? That was not really part of it. And much of interactive theatre sees that. Now, a lot of people use the term interactive and immersive theatre the same way, but if you go to a lot of these kinds of shows, you will see distinct similarities. In immersive theatre, such as Sleep No More, or anything that Third Rail Production does, like Then She Fell, or The Speakeasy, things like that, there actually is very little interaction you do. It is incredibly immersive. A lot of the production focuses on scenography and lighting and soundscapes and costumes, but you are often told you are not allowed to speak speak to anyone, for example. That is a part of the experience. It is more about this like sensory, it's more like traditional theater, but rather than with a proscenium, with a stage, it's a lot about locomotion and walking through the space to experience things. So when people tell me, do you make immersive theater? I say, I have no budget for that. Now, there's a thing about big games and escape rooms, and I like making the distinction because people tell me, oh, you made a LARP, you ran a LARP last night. I'm like, I actually didn't run a LARP because there wasn't a lot of role play, and then in fact it turned out there was, but that's because I was playing with LARPers. The focus of the game is not about the role play, right? If you go to the Come Out and Play Festival in New York and San Francisco, for example, I know some of you have shown there, the role play in most of the games is very light. It's more about the game mechanics, the sport-like mechanics, or the puzzle mechanics. There may be a thin veneer of plot or narrative. It is not the most important thing. It's about the gamist elements. And of course, there's performance art. Right? This is Marina Abramovich, the artist is present, where she's sitting in a gallery for 4 hours staring, and you sit and just stare into her eyes. And you get a lot of emotional things out of it, but you know, there are no rules. Just do whatever the performance art. That's not to say that everything, it's complicated. But performance art has fewer defined rules and practices, I would say, in my artistic knowledge. Now, why am I making this distinction? I do not want to be a genre Stasi member where I come to each of you and say, why are you naming your piece a LARP, which is in fact an immersive theatre piece, right? I'm making these distinctions because audiences are looking for different things. The second show of Treason that I did, we're like, okay, so who wants to come on stage? And then everyone just gave us a blank look. And I'm like, no one? No one? Right? So expectations of audiences are important. Not everyone wants to do everything. I, for example, like, yeah, I'm going to jump in and use this pink phallus in mime giving you a blowjob. That would be so fun in this game. Not everyone wants to do that. And so you need to build expectation audiences. And yes, tools like mixing deskings are very helpful because people can go through very carefully and see what does this experience give me. But very often audiences who, you know, audiences are pressed for time. Audiences want to do all kinds of things. The world offers so many different things. What are they going to actually experience? Sometimes they'll just look at the thing. Oh, that's interactive theater. I don't like interactive theater. Or, oh, that's LARP. Oh, that's like foam weapons. I don't like foam weapons. Or maybe, oh, that's LARP. I really love foam weapons, but then there are no foam weapons in there, right? So some of these things I like using as shorthand for the kind of content the shows will have. Now, of course, you get in now. Whenever you talk about genre, you reach the same, but what about this? This is a weird thing. Where does that fit, right? So the Adventure Society, which is a nice group in New York run by a friend of mine, Dalton Gray, he does these really cool shows where there is a theater audience, and then he'll bring you on stage, and then you'll do like an obstacle course. Like you will do crawling on the floor and jumping, and then there is a story, so he will lead you through like basically a D&D adventure, except that you can't really change the narrative, but you're having this cool physical experience that he's just narrating. So the obstacle usually doesn't have as many props, and he'll tell you, and a dart is shooting, and you have to like duck, and you know, and like, well, where does that fit in the classification, right? Does it really? So Emily Carabas has a wonderful LARP called In the Arms of the Pack, and I was like, Squee, can I like call you and make something with you? And she was awesome and said, sure, even though she didn't know who I was at all. And so we worked in adapting the LARP In the Arms of the Pack for a theatrical audience. So we said there will be a LARP, but there will, so there's a lot of talk about, you know, like G-form style LARPs are often built for no audiences. So we said, you know what, we're going to build this for an audience. And we gave the audience meta techniques and mechanics to use on the performer, actor, player people. And we're like, well, this is a weird hybrid between a LARP and a theater piece. And people are like, Sharang, see, there's a LARP you made. I'm like, I did not make that LARP. Emily made that LARP. I just like worked with her to put it on stage. And then she gave me a free copy. It was so nice. And then I learned that she was married to a designer I like a lot. I'm like, whoa, what? So that was really cool. But there, again, you reach this hybrid, right? And so what's interesting there is that we have reached these like intersections, right? So the founder of the consulting firm I work for has this whole thesis about innovation only comes from the intersections of other things. what can we learn from other art forms that we can bring into LARP or whatever type of art form you practice that can make your art form original and exciting and unique and fresh? Because, you know, we just talk about things that are tired and old and we need to revitalize. Not to say that old things are bad or classics are bad or you know, but there is value in innovation and in revitalizing it and giving audiences new things. So again, this is not going to be exhaustive. This is not going to be like super deep. I only have like 10 more minutes. I think 5 more minutes, 6 more minutes, hey. These are some of the things I think that LARP can learn from other forms, and of course, some of these things are done by certain LARPs, but you know, we're a big community, there's a huge array of games out there, of experiences out there, and so I think it's good to like share what are different forms doing that we might be able to bring into art, because hey, I've never thought of that. Like, I have never played a bot for LARP, and I want to, and I'm like, maybe it can teach me things that I do when I do a fancy gallery show, like, yes, I will make the curators hit each other with bomb stories. Right? One thing is multimedia, right? I don't just mean like objects, or I do also mean objects, but I also mean video and audio. So Cleo Davis, who is here, and she's wonderful, and I made a piece called The Institute, which we got Google funding for, so that was something to put on the resume. And one of the puzzles that Cleo came up with was literally a smell puzzle. Like, we bought different scents and you had to like smell them and decide which of them smelled like a swimming pool. And if you did, you got a narrative snippet. And if you didn't, you were stupid. No, I'm kidding. You got another narrative snippet. Right? So video and audio are very good. Projections, soundscapes, taste and smell is important. So a lot of immersive theater, like I said, involves dance and watching how dance can contribute. I played an interesting LARP a few days ago where one of the game mechanics was dance. Things like that. Interesting. There's a lot of new technology. Two of the keynote speakers spoke about technology. So VR and AR can give interesting avenues of LARP exploration. So I have hopefully successfully used video in interactive pieces. Maybe that's a thing that can be included in a LARP. It should be, I think. Now, limited choice. This is controversial, right? Because one of the things we often talk about, oh my God, we need to have the choice to do anything we want. Well, you know what doesn't have a lot of choice but has a huge market? Video games, right? There are a ton of role-playing video games where you have like 5 choices. People love them, but people are like, oh my God, I wish I had all the choice. And I think there is something to be said for authorial voice. Not to be mean, but some people write better than other people. And so, like, I really want to read books by this author, and similarly, I really want to play games where the narratives are written by these writers. And sometimes I might say, you know what, you can probably write a narrative much better than me. So maybe we can think about how to have some less agency in LARPs to increase player involvement in plot. Like, maybe that's a thing that could be interesting. And similarly, scaffolding, where elements of story and plot are brought in slowly. This is something video games do very well. That's Dragon Age 2. I put that image because queer romance, why not? So scaffolding, narrative, and plot is something video games often do very well. And hey, maybe we can do that more in LARP. Scenic design. Now, 360 LARPs are pretty good at scenic design, but we can do more elements in design that you can learn from the immersive theater world. Lighting and music can be sometimes more powerful than props and costuming, right? And I think LARPs could benefit a lot from playing with lighting and music. Colin Nightingale at the Immersive Summit, he's one of the bigwigs at Punch Drunk. He was talking about how Sleep No More and similar shows use provocations, like you're walking around and then there's an open door. Oh. Let me go into that open door, right? So these things that provoke you to enter story. And then there's, of course, environmental storytelling elements. So yes, props and stuff are very good to create mood, but can the scene actually create storytelling itself? Felix Barrett, one of the chief creatives at Punch Drunk, in an interview with New York Times, talked about this room, which is full of locks of human hair, and talked about the implied narratives that this room suggested. So you can sit and like ponder what is going on here, what is happening, what is the story behind this, and that would be very interesting to have in like LARP elements. Symbolic actions. So Lizzie Stark has a great article where she says, what is freeform? And she talks about this divide between symbolic actions and embodied actions. And that doesn't, I'm not meaning here symbolic actions where I roll the die to symbolize a conflict. I mean, doing something that is a game mechanic, but that is also laden with symbolism that carries story or that carries theme. So a terrible example is my board game Mad Science Foundation. All the cards have a button on them, and in order to use an invention, you press the button, and we did that so that you remember what you've used, but it also makes you feel like a mad scientist when you press a button. And playtesters have told us this, so I'm not going to leave that. So procedural metaphor, making the procedures themselves carry meaning and metaphor. So, conclusion. Embodied play, there are many kinds of them, they vary in all these different ways. It is good to give your audience an idea of in what way they will vary, and a good way of doing that is the title. However, we don't have to stick to the genres. They can learn from each other and take things from each other. What can they learn? Examples include multimedia, limited choice, scenic design, symbolic actions. Right? So, again, that was a call to let's innovate, not you are all doing things badly, or none of you can do any of these things, or all of you suck. I suck very well, in fact. But, so this is just a suggestion that how can we look toward the future of LARP? Thank you for letting me be your keynote speaker. You all look wonderful. I look better.